If We Must Die. If We Must Die is the poem that makes me a poet among colored Americans. If we must die, let it not be like hogs, hunted and penned in an inglorious spot, while round us bark the mad and hungry dogs, making their mock at our accursed lot. If we must die, oh, let us nobly die, so that our precious blood may not be shed in vain. Then even the monsters we defy shall be constrained to honor us though dead. O kinsmen, we must meet the common foe. Though far outnumbered, let us show us brave, and for their 1,000 blows deal one death blow. What though before us lies the open grave? Like men, we'll face the murderous, cowardly pack, pressed to the wall, dying but fighting back.
Wait, what just happened?
You're gonna wanna check this out.
Oh.
Hello, I am Albot. I am part of the educational program meant to teach you about a major figure in the Harlem Renaissance.
How do you spell that? What's the AL stand for?
It stands for Artificial Leader.
Well, that's dumb.
You're dumb. Come with me, Mrs. Cesar and Mr. Daniel.
Huh?
Ahem. Claude McKay, born as Festus Claudius McKay, and known by his writing pseudonym Eli Edwards, was born to farmer parents in Sunnyvale, Clarendon Parish, Jamaica, on the 15th of September 1890. He would then die on May 22, 1948, in Chicago, Illinois. He was the youngest of 11 children.
McKay was sent at an early age to live with his oldest brother, schoolteacher Uriah Theophilus McKay, who helped develop his literary interests. Walter Jekyll, an English gentleman residing in Jamaica, became his mentor. McKay fell in love with European works, but Jekyll encouraged him to use his own dialect when writing and be proud of it. Claude McKay decided to enter a trade school, but when the school was destroyed by an earthquake, he became apprenticed to a carriage and cabinet maker. By the time he immigrated to the United States in 1912, McKay had established himself as a poet, publishing 2 volumes of dialect verse, Songs of Jamaica, 1912, and Constab Ballads, 1912. He read W.E.B. Du Bois' works, which had a major impact on him and stirred his political involvement. In 1914, McKay decided to move to New York, where he married his childhood sweetheart, Eulalie Lewis. One of his most famous works, If We Must Die, was first published in the July 1919 issue of The Liberator, a monthly socialist magazine, when McKay was nearly 30 years old. He wrote the work during the time of the Red Summer, a time of racial violence all over America. In 1922, McKay visited the USSR. Active in the social justice movement, McKay then became a socialist. McKay traveled across Europe to places like Paris and London. In London, he would spread socialist literature and participate in socialist clubs. During this period, he also published 3 novels and a short story collection. The first novel, Home to Harlem, 1928, perhaps his most recognized title, concerns a black soldier named Jake. In 1940, he became a U.S. citizen, and in 1940, he converted to Roman Catholicism and worked with a Catholic youth organization until his death, as mentioned before, on May 22, 1948, Chicago, Illinois. Welcome to the McKay Library. It contains many of Claude McKay's most famous works. His work as a poet and author led him to write one of his most famous poems, If We Must Die, during the Red Summer. The poem, along with the other literature and publication in his published book, Harlem Shadows, established him as a key figure of the literary movement referred to as the Harlem Renaissance.
Wow, so he was like some kind of Renaissance man?
That line was so hard.
That book is called Home to Harlem. The protagonist, Jake Brown, was a former soldier. He traveled from London to Harlem to find a place where he could feel accepted. Jake was in the U.S. Army, but he wanted more than menial tasks. After seeing racial violence in London, he left the army and looked for a way to Harlem.
Oh, so Mr. McKay was like a writer who spoke about racism in his novels. So in the book, he expressed himself to the main character who went from London to Harlem to be accepted for who he was, but was denied, just like Mr. McKay.
Wow, that was really introspective.
Yeah, unlike you, the I in my name stands for intelligent.
Yeah, but the L in your name stands for loser.
Whoa, what the?
This hallway has paintings of other Harlem Renaissance figures and the other movements Mr. McKay was connected to. He was friends with Ellen Terry, an author and minor figure in the Harlem Renaissance. Their relationship led to a children's literature fellowship. His works would also inspire other important figures of the Harlem Renaissance, including Langston Hughes, another artist. Mr. McKay found himself in the company of communists several times. He became friends with Max Eastman, communist sympathizer and editor of the magazine Liberator, where some of his most famous works, including If We Must Die, were published. He was also friends with Briton Charles Ashley, another campaigning communist. Eventually, McKay visited Russia and attended the Communist Party's 4th Congress. He also dabbled in socialist circles. While he was in London, he was a member of the International Socialist Club. He would introduce socialist ideas to another club, the Drury Lane Club, a hub for citizens. He was also involved in the very early days of the LGBTQ movement as someone who was secretly bisexual. His partners often included people from his literary circles like Waldo Frank and Edwin Arlington Robinson.
That's cool. He was pretty active in a bunch of movements and knew a lot of other Renaissance figures. He wasn't the only part of the Harlem Renaissance.
Come with me. Oh, it seems that Mr. McKay is giving a speech over here.
Bow down my soul in worship very low, and in the holy silences be lost. Bow down before the marble man of woe. Bow down before the singing angel host. What jeweled glory fills my spirit's eye? What golden grandeur moves the depths of me? The soaring arches lift me up on high, taking my breath with their rare symmetry. Bow down my soul, and let the wondrous light of beauty bathe thee from her lofty throne. Bow down before the wonder of man's might. Bow down in worship, humble and alone. Bow lowly down before the sacred sight of man's divinity alive in stone.
Oh, so he believed that black people should stand together and firm against the injustices that they were dealt.
Yeah, he knew that there was racial violence in America, but when it came to that, African Americans had to be brave and fight back.
It seems that you finally understand. Mr. McKay was an early Harlem Renaissance figure, but he would not leave without making an impact on the movement. He inspired not just other African Americans, but the future activists of the Harlem Renaissance. Now that you have learned of Claude McKay's legacy, the simulation must end. Have a high five. It will let you back into the real world.
Yeah!
Woo!
All detonation unit ready. Now ignition standby, 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 standby. This shit will detonate in T-minus 10 seconds. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Mr. McKay, what are you doing here?
Hey Daniel, well after you talked about me for about 10 minutes, I had to pop in and say hi.
Thank you so much. How do we do?
Well, you could have made me sound better first off. This voice sounds like a lazy robot.
My bad. At least your poems were good.
Thank you. You guys did a great job and I appreciate all of the attention to detail to my life and legacy. I couldn't have summarized it better.
Yeah, I hope our teachers think so too.
Finn